Well, hello. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, NoleFam, to another episode of our Australian Open special. Joining me today is my co-host, Mario Boccardi, and, deputy editor of Novak Books, our friend, Jay Schroeder. Gentlemen, how are we feeling today?
I'll go first. I'm feeling much better after that match.
Yes.
I was even able to go back to sleep afterwards, and it was just very refreshing to see Novak looking a little bit more like Novak. I still don't think he said in his press conference that he still doesn't feel like he's playing his best, and I would agree with that. But he was very dominant in that match and exposed a few weaknesses that Etcheverry has. He's very solid. Etcheverry doesn't make a lot of unforced errors and makes you work for things. But the thing that I was most struck by was Etcheverry's lack of potency on the +1. I felt like he serves pretty well. He actually out-aced Nole. Even when Novak did a kind of a mid-court return or a loose return that wasn't particularly deep, Etcheverry wasn't quite able to get on top of the point. He could hit it direct it to the open court, but Novak could get there with enough time to stay in the rally. Whereas I think bigger hitters could, really put a little bit more pressure on Novak, and he was able to hang in there on that +1 shot. And I think that was really the key to the whole match.
Yeah, Mario, buddy. How's the mood in Bari, Italy today?
Well, yes, honestly, as if nothing happened. But
it's like the usual.
It's not like people are celebrating in the streets. But being serious, it's been a very good match. And honestly, I was kind of thinking today when I woke up, I was feeling Novak has shown that he's not feeling very, very well the ball. And then I remember that playing Etcheverry could have really been good for him, because Etcheverry is a guy who, also there were a lot of rallies, even long rallies. Novak had really the chance to find his rhythm from the baseline. So I think that this kind of match, not because I don't trust Thomas, but I think that the kind of opponent was an opponent who could have also helped Novak to find his rhythm better. And hopefully Novak will also show this in the next round, because the opponent will be totally different from what it was today. Totally different tennis. But yeah, it was a good match. He served way better today. And even when Etcheverry stepped up with his game and played better in the third set, Novak still looked sure, didn't risk with a serve, and then the tiebreak, just was all business. So a good match, I would say, from both sides, but especially from Novak's side. Both sides, because still for Etcheverry, comparing to the Paris match, this went way better. But focusing on Novak, a very nice improvement comparing to the other two matches. Hopefully he's also feeling better when it's the cold, some days have passed. So as he also said, things are going also better physically, and technically the performance was very, very good. So yeah.
One last thing to add is he didn't face a single break point today, Novak, and only one service game even went to deuce. And I believe that was fairly late in the third set when he was actually 40 love. And he kind of, he played, I wouldn't say, poorly, but it maybe made a couple of a little bit of a careless mistakes, kind of knowing that room. So there was one
seventh game of the third set.
Maybe 1-15-30 kind of situation, and then a deuce, there, where I think there was a little bit of a rally after that, if I remember correctly, where maybe Etcheverry had a half a chance, but really it was just so in control on serve today that I just think it took a lot of pressure off of him. 3 breaks was all he needed, 2 in the second set. I actually felt like Etcheverry played maybe a little bit better in the third set, but I felt like there were actually some opportunities there for Novak on return. Half chances again where he maybe a couple of things I think he could do better, and hopefully he'll be able to do that as the tournament goes forward. But certainly just nitpicking here, he played very solid, very impressive, and much improved from the first two matches.
Yeah, guys, as you can see, Srihari is not with us today. He'll unfortunately not be joining us. He has a couple of family members visiting him in Dubai, so I gave him a day off. So I hope that he's enjoying it. In case someone has missed, and you guys kind of ruined my intro, I have to tell you that Novak Djokovic has eased past Thomas Etcheverry in straight sets, 6-3, 6-3, 7-6. With high class all around displayed inside the Rod Laver Arena. As Jay said, he did not face a single break point and broke Thomas's resistance in the third set tie break, and he ran out of a comprehensive winner across 2 hours and 28 minutes in his 100th Australian Open match. It was also his 31st consecutive win, and if I remember Maria's tweet, this was his 92nd victory at the Australian Open, which why I found that interesting, because he also has 92 victories at Roland Garros and at Wimbledon. Am I correct, Mario?
Yeah. And in the end, just four less, so 88 at the US Open. So that just shows like, I don't know, conditions really doesn't matter, at least in terms of, getting a certain number of wins and getting, into the latest stages. It's really not for everyone,
consistency king. And also one thing, he became a centurion today, the only male tennis player in history who had played 100 matches at all 4 majors. Both Rafa and Roger are missing a couple of matches. Roger at the Roland Garros, and Rafa, I believe, at Wimbledon.
And only the third player, male or female, to hit the century mark at the Australian Open.
Who are the other two? Oh, yeah. Serena and Roger.
And Roger on the men's side.
Correct. Yeah. So, guys, as we already mentioned, Jay, as you said at the opening, it was a great match for Novak, but again, not the greatest, which he also alluded to in his presser after the match, his on-court presser. But are we satisfied? Can we be satisfied with his performance?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think, Novak obviously has very high standards, and I'm sure he still doesn't quite feel like he's 100%. You could still hear in the press conference a little bit of the nasally, the voice, and he still had his tissues, out there on the court. So I do think it sounded like he woke up kind of just feeling a little bit better overall. That could be related to the virus, and it could also just be maybe, less pain in the body for, just soreness or fatigue or whatever. So maybe got a good night's sleep. It's hard to say, without being able to talk, to his physios and everything, but felt like he's on the mend and looking better. And it'll be a really interesting matchup, actually, with Mannarino. I think a lot of people are expecting it to be Ben Shelton with the big serve, but I think the slower conditions this year, were a benefit to Mannarino and his unique style. Such short, compact strokes, no topspin whatsoever, such flat hitting, able to redirect the ball effortlessly. Clever player, he's been around a long time, a true pro. Never reached the heights that some of his French peers have reached, but here he is at a career high in the live rankings at 17, I believe now.
Yeah,
he's playing his best tennis. He won, I think, 3 tournaments last year, maybe 2 late in the year.
Three, yeah.
Yeah, so 2 late in the year, and then maybe 1 in the middle of the year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but something like that. So he's playing the best tennis of his life. Interestingly, he had it was either on Instagram or Twitter. he had kind of playfully said, who here has already lost 3 matches this year, because he lost all 3 of his United Cup matches. We didn't exactly come into the Australian Open probably feeling like the most confident player, but here he is. I'm sure he's very happy with what he's shown, and he's done it, marathon man. I believe all 3 were 5-setters, correct? Yeah. So I'm excited for that. I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be a good match to watch, just because again, Mannarino, I don't think anybody plays anything like him, really. He's kind of got a very unique playing style, and I believe he had some pretty serious wrist injury several years ago, and has had to kind of tinker with his game a little bit, but maintain, the overall kind of optics of how he plays. So I'm excited for him. I'm happy for him, and I look forward to that one. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see if he's going to play another night match, or if they'll maybe have him play a little bit, and maybe his first day match. It'll be interesting to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, let's go back a little bit to today's match against Thomas. Mario, I was going to say last week, because I'm used to us doing a weekly pod, not every 2 days. During our last episode 2 days ago, when we were discussing about encounter between Novak and Thomas, and how the match will unfold, you said, and you told me that again, you repeated to me in backstage prior to recording this. You said that you were expecting a hard-fought first set, and then that match will ease itself in favor of Novak. That was not the case. I mean, what we saw today was relatively easy first 2 sets, and then either Thomas stepped up his game, or Novak lowered his in the third set. That's why we saw that tiebreaker, which of course Novak won. But why do you think the match unfolded the way it did, and not the way you predicted or hoped for?
Well, because I thought that it could have happened the opposite, that maybe Novak at the beginning could have still felt a little bit, still not 100% with his shot. And then maybe, also due to the matchup, I thought maybe after an hour he could start, play better and better. While no, it happened the opposite, because Novak came ready, super ready from the very beginning. And more or less like really the first 2 matches, had a good first set. But you could have feel that this time it was different, because he was also moving better, and indeed also the second set was very well. Overall, I still had this idea that Novak would have played better today, and so it still has been a straight set win, more or less how I had imagined, considering how many games Etcheverry could have won. I was not expecting a scoreline as the one that Tsitsipas or Sinner had today, and indeed it hasn't been. But still, I was expecting Novak to play better, and also I think that the rival Novak had today was better than the others, and I think we will see him in round 3 of majors for quite some time. So I'm thinking that we can be super satisfied, because there's always something that could have been better in some moments, but overall, comparing also to the first 2 matches, this is a great match overall. And even if not the first set I had imagined, more or less we are there.
Well, in Mario's defense, just the oddities of this tennis scoring system, Novak actually won a higher percentage of points in the first set than any of the other sets. You would think with 2 breaks in the second set, that was actually his worst set, statistically speaking. It was a 54-46 split in favor of Novak, but he had 2 breaks to none. So, the last set, it was actually 55-45 in favor of Novak, but it went all the way to a tie break. So it just shows you, it's all about the big points. I mean, it can be a 30-30 game, and if you don't win that point, you're going to be under pressure and you're facing the break point, et cetera. So every time Novak had any inkling of trouble, it was pretty smooth sailing today. I felt like in that third set, there were opportunities to get a break and maybe make the scoreline look, like maybe Mario was predicting. But, when you don't have to have it, you got a 2-set lead, you're feeling comfortable out there. It's just human nature. Maybe your mind drifts, or maybe maybe it's just one return was a half a millimeter long, and that's the difference between forcing a break point and dropping the game. So it's just that's tennis really.
So again, we had Eurosport here in Europe. I don't know who is the broadcaster in the US. I think it's ESPN, right?
Well, it is ESPN that has the rights here in the United States, but I don't even have live television, so I'm just watching on stream.
The reason why I mentioned that is, again, of course, we have all our regional play-by-play guys. Mario has his Italian guys in Italy. We have here our Serbian guys. But what I saw on Twitter from the international Eurosport, of course, which Nick Kyrgios is a part of this year, he was in awe, if I can say it like that, with Novak's forehand today, especially compared to how bad it was in the first 2 rounds. What did you guys see in Novak's? Well, let's go first with his forehand play, but again, backhand as well, especially the two-handed, which again we saw a couple of spectacular points winners he had today.
Yeah, and Gil Gross, another guy on Twitter, had pointed out the forehand. The return to what we were just kind of become used to seeing, especially last year. Felt like last year Novak's forehand was the best it had ever been. So
it was almost a non-existent.
It was all over. It was all over the place those first two matches, and I think it is the effects of the virus to some extent. Your footwork maybe is just a little sloppier. There's there might still be some stiffness, soreness with the wrist too. I didn't really notice anything today. Maybe you guys did, but
no,
certainly in the last match I did see him flexing it a couple times, trying to stretch it out. So it's hard to say, but I think it was pretty obvious. I don't think Novak forgot how to play tennis between Turin and the beginning of the Australian Open. I think he wasn't feeling particularly great, and it showed in his play, but he was able to fight through those first couple of matches and get the job done, and hopefully his health continues to improve. That's one of the things that's so remarkable about Novak, and also to some extent Roger or Rafa, some of these other legends of the game. They're over the course of a long season, 10, 11 month season, there's going to be times where they're really not feeling well. They're sick. They're injured. These guys play hurt, I'm sure, all the time. And they still find a way to win, so it's pretty remarkable. When they are fit and their game is locked in, they're almost unbeatable, especially Novak here in Melbourne. It's other than Rafa on Chatrier, there's nothing compares. So
yeah,
how
I agree, and I'm happy. No, I wanted to say that I'm happy also to see his backhand firing, because last year
the backhand was beautiful today.
Last year there have been some matches in which I've seen him losing the balance a little bit. He was talking during last year, especially the Cincinnati final in Paris when he won the Paris Masters. He was talking a lot with his box about his backhand, especially in Italian language, and that's why it stuck in my head also. And so I'm happy to see this because it's also, especially down the line, it's, one of these shots that kind of made me fall in love with tennis when I was a kid. So when I saw that which is, at a good level, producing some spectacular winners. For me, it's always a good sign because it shows also that he's getting confidence. For example, I remember the US Open final last year, where he started incredibly well with the backhand in the first games. And this is usually, also an indicator that he's feeling well when he tries to, he's risking a bit also that down the line, more time than usual.
Yeah, both the forehand and the backhand. I mean, really, he was rock solid from the back of the court. There were, just a few things here and there. Mostly, I think in that third set where, kind of 15 all points or 15-30 points on return, where he was in the point and had a chance to extend the point and either made an error. I mean, in fact, I think I remember a couple of times he did the sliding backhand cross court shot, and they clipped the tape, and they didn't trickle over. So just little small margins like that can make the difference sometimes between getting that last break there in the third set. But I felt pretty confident about his chances in the tie break, especially after the first point on his serve. It's kind of a long extended rally. I felt, and he was he reacted to that. So.
I thought that when I saw that, I thought, today I'm gonna say that point defined the tiebreak. Because then Etcheverry went to serve, not to serve. I mean, it was the mini break. I think that first point, if I'm not wrong.
Could be. I'll have to rewatch.
But still, it's the kind of rally. Then if you lose it, then you struggle. And if Etcheverry would have won that rally, maybe a mini break, he could have snatched a mini break, and then the tiebreak would have been more difficult. So yeah.
So according to I have flash score here, and assuming it's accurate, they're generally pretty good. But the first point was actually a Novak serve, and then he won the next 2 points on Etcheverry serve. So as soon as he got that, the two mini breaks, I mean, I was very, very confident, and he did drop the next point on his serve, but he won 3 of his last 3 serve points, and that was more than enough. So yeah, pretty comfortable. He looked good. He looked sharp.
Yeah. So next opponent, as you guys mentioned, would be Adrian Mannarino, who defeated Ben Shelton today in another 5-setter. Thriller.
Long 5-setter too. I believe it was like almost 4.5 hours or more, even.
4:45.
4:45.
Wow.
Yeah,
that might be the longest match of the tournament. Am I wrong?
Should be.
It might be. Yeah. So
yeah.
I think that shows you. You would think with Shelton and that serve, the conditions, night conditions.
But if I have to be honest, not only the condition, but Shelton suffered a lot with the serve because he had to defend a lot of break points. So the games became, pretty long in the 5th set also, especially. I think that Mannarino had break points in all his 3 return games, and then finally broke in the 3rd one. And that prolonged, the duration also.
There were 30
night matches. The conditions are slower than the day matches.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we saw that with like Sinner's match. I didn't see it, but just the score line. I mean, Baez is more of a clay court specialist, but that score line was, I think, pretty indicative of pretty quick conditions during the day versus night. I think Baez, could have hung in there a little bit better in a night match versus the day. But yeah, that's why I think it'll be interesting to see how they schedule the 4th round match for Novak and Mannarino.
Mario,
what do you think? Go ahead.
What can we expect from that match? I mean, the 2 of them have played 4 times so far. Novak has a 4-0 record. The last time they played, it was in 2018, and
Cincinnati.
In terms of Grand Slams, they only played twice at Wimbledon, but that was again in 2016 and 17. Which Mannarino is a completely different player today than he was in 2016, 17, and 18. As Jay alluded, I mean, he's been playing his best tennis in the last 6 to 12 months. Won 3 titles, as you said. He's currently ranked 17, which is his career high. What can we expect from that match on Sunday?
Yeah, there's a high chance that it would be, a day match, in my opinion, because there's a good contender for the night match, which can also be, the one between Rublev and de Minaur.
Yes.
These two matches will for sure be the matches on the Rod Laver Arena for that day. But I don't think that it would honestly make that much of a difference. In my opinion, yeah, I mean, also Novak has had some pretty long matches, but I fear that, after these three setters, honestly, I'm expecting a scoreline which can be more or less similar to what we had today, for different reasons. But even if Novak at times can struggle a little bit with this guy who had a lot of variety, but in my opinion, it's not that kind of variety that Mannarino brings on the court. Novak usually tends to struggle a bit if maybe he is not able to overpower the opponent with, for example, the forward. What happened, for example, against Pritzmich in the first match, and Novak always had to play one more shot, and not that he's not able to do it, but can start struggling a little bit. But with Mannarino, I think that with this kind of guys who likes to play this attacking tennis style, Novak should be fine. That's my take on that, because I know, despite Mannarino is playing so well, he's not Roger Federer, and so I think that it should be fine. Also finding some kind of passing shot and time. Sometimes Mannarino would think too much, maybe, if going to the net, because when you have Novak from the other side, you started to tend to think too much, and so I'm expecting more or less a similar scoreline, even if the match will be totally different from today.
How the two players being Mannarino and Shelton vary in their playing styles, Jay?
It's a good question. I mean, I think at this stage of Shelton's career, it's really the serve. I mean, if he's not getting 3 points on his serve, I think he's a good athlete. I think he's got a bright future. In fact, I think he's a great athlete. I mean, I think he's very capable of being a power player that can have a long, solid career. If you get a chance, you should check out Tennis Abstracts. Had a recent blog post on Shelton, though, and it talked about his return game, and it's not good. The numbers there are pretty eye-opening, and it talked about how, historically, how are players able to improve their return that have kind of a low points, service points, return points won, when they start their careers. And most guys aren't really able to raise that a whole lot, a couple percentage points at best, So I feel like Shelton is going to be the kind of player that's going to be most dangerous in, really quick conditions, where the serve can carry him for long stretches, like Wimbledon, maybe Turin potentially, or the indoor hard court season. But I think, if the rallies are extended and he's got to hit a lot of second serves and everything, to me, he's just not developed enough yet as a player to be a real threat. So I think the cooler conditions for him and against Mannarino gave him a lot of trouble. As far as Mannarino, he hits the ball so flat. I think I agree with what Mario said. I don't foresee this being a really a big struggle for Novak. I think it's a match that he should win, fairly comfortably. But I think he might be a little bit tricky in the very, very early stages of the matches, as he just kind of adjusts to Mannarino's ground strokes and how early he takes the ball and how flat he hits it. It should kind of actually play into Novak's kind of wheelhouse, I think. But it'll be interesting to see. It's been such a long time. 2018, that's a long time. That's 5.5 years ago since they played. And Mannarino's a different player. I think Novak's a different player, much different player. So there's really not a whole lot to go on here. I mean, the 4 matches were, a lifetime ago in some ways. So it'll be an interesting match. I want to see that match, and I think it'll be pretty compelling to watch. But I feel confident that Novak will come out of it on top.
Mario, is Mannarino? How should I phrase this? Would Ben Shelton be a more predictable player?
Ben Shelton?
Yeah, if he advanced.
Yeah, in my opinion, yes, because Mannarino uses this kind of variety. He has good hands, and even in some unexpected ways, sometimes during the match, also trying maybe some drop shot, which I think he will try to use this weapon maybe at times. I think he can bring something different into the table, but also, choosing when to do and when not to do it, while maybe Shelton, he has this very big serve, so he can do a lot of serve and volley at times. But as we saw during the US Open, that semifinal, there are some moments in the match in which maybe he gets fired up, and like it happened, for example, in the end of that 3rd set during the semifinal, when Novak, had also to save set point. But overall, it's still not enough against a player, who returns so well. But also, to make another example, we saw Shelton play against Sinner twice late in last year. Even if the head-to-head is 1-1, in the match he won, he still had, Sinner still was able to create a lot of break points. Then Shelton was very good with the serve to save those. But I feel like it's still not enough to not have trouble against these players, and to, once you are able to do it twice, 3 times, I don't know. Even his draw towards the US Open, he beat guys like Tiafoe, Tommy Paul, who are it's not like they are the best returners in the whole world. And so his serve made a huge difference in those cases. But right now he has to really mature on court, in my opinion. Even his attitude, he's good in some ways, because you perceive that he believes he can do, he has confidence, but sometimes in my opinion, it is a little bit too much. He kind of loses a bit of energy. For example, during the 5th set today, sometimes just be a bit more quiet and try to conserve most energy possible, and maybe you let one scream once you won the match, for me it can mature a little bit, even his attitude on the court.
I was just going to add, I think the unpredictability that Shelton brings is less in his game style and more in his behavior on the court. I think the reason why people were kind of looking forward to that match or excited about the possibility of a Shelton Djokovic matchup is more about what was kind of happening off the court. With Novak's made a few comments, and Shelton's some of the behavior that he had in that US Open match that maybe ruffled some feathers. So I think it was more of like, could Shelton maybe try to pull like some Kyrgios type antics where he's trying to get in his head a little bit and frustrate Novak. And, I don't know that really works, but it's worth a shot. I mean, like, nothing else is going to work. Your game's not going to be enough, most likely, So that I think that was really the thing that people were kind of excited about. To me, it was less about the tennis and more about kind of the off court, news media stuff. So.
What are your predictions for Mannarino match, score-wise?
You want to go first, Mario?
Well, yeah, I mean, let's say that I said kind of similar scoreline, but maybe I'm tending. I don't know. I have the feeling that we will see an even better Novak. So I'm saying with something like 6-4, 6-2, 6-3, something like that. I'm predicting a very good match. I have this feeling.
A straight set win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jay?
Yeah, it's hard to predict. I could see maybe Mannarino could, he took a couple of there were a couple of tiebreakers in the Shelton match. I mean, it's possible he could get a match into a breaker and maybe steal a set in a tiebreak. I think that's about the best you could hope for, and it'll also just be interesting. I mean, I think he spent something like 11, 12 hours on the court already. I mean, after a 4-hour and 40-minute war. I mean, I know you get the extra day off at a Grand Slam, but it might not be. He might not have a whole lot left in the tank. So that's something to keep an eye on, and I'm sure Novak's aware of that, and he's going to make him run. And I don't think Mannarino's got enough to try to shorten points and serve and volley, or there's not a whole lot he can do in that respect. So it's hard to if you're in the Mannarino camp, it's really hard to come up with something here that's going to make you think he can win the match or even win a set. So I'll say straight sets, but I mean, it wouldn't shock me if maybe he's able to get one into a tiebreak, especially if maybe Novak's still a little bit sluggish or still feeling the effects of wrist, virus, whatever the case may be. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to ask you guys when we were discussing about the Etcheverry match was that time violation Novak got, which was very unpopular both on social media, Rod Laver Arena, and from Nick Kyrgios' perspective. What's your comment on that, Marko? Especially since we saw, I mean, the broadcast director has shown us multiple times the time violations that Thomas could have received, but it was no violations for him. But the first time Novak could have been penalized for that, he received that penalty. So do you have a comment about that?
I mean, yeah, definitely could have been avoidable.
Why did it do that? Especially since he was basically, in a serving motion. It's not like he was still, bouncing the ball.
Yeah,
it just ruins the move.
That is why I think that it could have been avoidable, because, I understand. I'm kind of soft with this shot clock. I mean, it's important to not let pass too much time between the points. But if a player has basically started serving, it was for sure avoidable in my opinion. But I mean, we could pass by, so okay.
Yeah. Okay. Last question I have for you guys. It's about the Novak's post-match press conference, which I believe both of you saw, especially those Federer comments. Again, Novak was asked, I think, about Ben Shelton and his, on-court antics. I can't remember the exact question that journalist reporter asked him, but I'll read no.
Tell you that much. Yeah.
Was he?
Yeah, I can tell the voices. Man. At least
that snake.
There was also a question from Matt Futterman prior to that. He was asking him. He had asked the question about whether he ever thinks or has doubts that he can find the level after he was kind of struggling. That was Futterman's question, and then Rothenberg had the question about his behavior as a youngster and how that related to veterans and that sort of thing. And
yeah, and I love Novak's response, especially about Ben Shelton. He said that he basically likes that because he was similar to that. And I'll read you Novak's words. This is from Mario's tweet. I know it's certainly Federer didn't like the way I was behaving at the beginning. I think it didn't sit with him well. I don't know about the others. I guess I wasn't the favorite type of guy to some of the top guys because I was not afraid to say that I want to be the best player in the world. I was confident and I felt like I have the game to back it up. I never, ever lacked respect. Whenever I start a match, before the match or finish the match, I would always greet the opponent, always acknowledge. Respect is something that I was taught that needs to be present regardless of what is happening. So Jay, give me your thoughts on Novak's response to Ben Rothenberg, as you said.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a very thoughtful response. He actually took a long time. I think Rothenberg was looking for him to again run with the Ben Shelton thing, and because at the time actually they didn't know that match was still going on. I think the expectations again were maybe that it was going to be Shelton, and they're just looking for fuel, right? I mean, it's part of the job actually of the media, like it or not. I mean, I don't like it, to be honest with you, but they have to sell the product, and what sells? I mean, controversy sells, So
yeah, but that I get that, and that's fine. Yeah. For example, during the question, he was told that actually it was Mannarino who won the match. So why not wait until you have the evidence that he will be playing against Ben Shelton, and that then in my opinion would be fine. But again, as you said, just stirring the pot and asking controversial questions, there's a time and a place, in my opinion, for that.
Again, I don't like it. I don't think it was necessary, but I thought Novak was wise in how he responded to it. He took a long time actually to direct that question in any way at Shelton. He really talked about himself and his history, and how it happened 20 years ago. He's a different person, kind of thing. He always had the respect for his opponents on the court. Shaking their hands, looking at them in the eye, and win or lose. And then he, at the very end, he did kind of, as far as Ben, he said, "Hey, look, I like that the kid's confident. I don't have any issues with that." But he felt like, there might have been some instances in their match where he kind of crossed a line, and that's going to be up for debate. What's the line? And Shelton comes from a college tennis background where the game it's different in college. The crowds are very much involved in the match. You're allowed to shout out in the middle of points and things like that. So, and maybe, Shelton's an American. Maybe he grew up watching, a lot of American sports where the crowd is a big factor. It's tennis,
trash talk,
that kind of thing. So it might just be part of his style. And I think we're going to see that going forward from him. I really do. I still think though he can be. In fact, we even saw it in the Mannarino match. I think there was a clip I saw on Twitter of him saying,
"I'm too tough.
I'm too tough," or he didn't like whatever. These kinds of things, and it's going to backfire on him when he doesn't win matches. But hey, everybody's got their way of getting into a match. Yeah. You can't get too caught up in it. Again, I don't love it. I don't think Novak liked it. It's not for me, but some people are going to gravitate towards that. They like that. So. And I think it's working for Shelton. He's selling. He's in the news. People are talking about him, win or lose. So,
Mario,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, please. No, go finish.
That was it. Really. I just, everyone's different, and there are lines that can be crossed, and we've seen it with a guy like Kyrgios in the past, and other players. It's not like this is the first time we've seen this. There are some players that have, been agitators out there. And it's just kind of Benoit Paire, is a very fiery, colorful character out on the court. Other guys, Golbis, they've been around. There's a lot of these guys that's just their style.
Mario, do you have something to add, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, just that. First of all, I mean, we don't have to be too harsh. I mean, there are some things that, we have rightfully maybe pointed out. And for example, I mean, when he says to his box, I'm too tough, I mean, it can also be a way to encourage himself. I mean, as long as it is, about himself, I mean, he can say whatever he wants about himself, as long as it's not about the other guy from the other side of the. I'm just thinking that maybe it's difficult to understand if it really helps you or not, because everyone has, his own way. Of course, there are some limits. I mean, I remember very well when he said Novak in Rome after the match against Cameron Norrie. He said like, in the locker room there are some kind of unwritten rules that you don't have to cross that line. And I think that it kind of makes you understand that they know until where they can go, how far they can go with this behavior that can help you, and some things that maybe it's better to it's better to avoid. That said, I like the answers, by the way. I like the answer. Yeah. I think he summed up really well the concept, what he wanted to say. Yeah, the question was about himself, the first one. I know that there was Shelton, but I think that it was. I wonder if there were any other older player that made the criticism to you, and so he mentioned Federer, and I saw also mostly through Twitter, throwbacks to these press conferences and these interviews, because when it was that time, I was already following tennis, but just watching the matches and nothing more. So
young pup, a young pup. Yeah, exactly. Okay. I want to thank both of you guys. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today. We will be back on Sunday, as I announced, and Srihari will be joining us, so it'll be full house again. I just wanted to ask you guys to, of course, like I always do, please like this video, leave a comment down below, your feedbacks, whatever, share it, and of course, please consider subscribing to this channel and turning that notification bell on. It'll be a great boost, a major help to us. So until Sunday, goodbye and idemo nole. Bye, fellas.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Have a good weekend. We'll talk soon.
You too. See you.